Emma sat on her cozy couch, the soft hum of her laptop blending with the quiet suburban night outside her window. The neighborhood was still, every house bathed in the gentle glow of porch lights and security lamps. For a moment, the world seemed perfectly calm, too calm. Suddenly, without warning, the lights flickered once, twice, and then went out entirely. Darkness swallowed the room. Emma blinked, startled, as the familiar comfort of electricity vanished in an instant. Her phone's screen cast a pale glow, but the silence felt heavy, ominous. As she stood to investigate, a sharp, unmistakable voice drifted from the street. Karen's voice, booming and full of authority, barking orders during the evenings. HOA meeting in her manicured front yard across the street. "Rules are rules, Emma. No exceptions." Karen's words sliced through the night air like a blade. Emma's stomach twisted. She hadn't been at the meeting, but Karen had made it. Clear the HOA was cracking down hard on any violations, especially on Emma's street. Last week, Karen had publicly scolded Emma for an improper electrical setup. Something minor, a flickering porch light, but enough to rile Karen's obsessive need for control. Now, in the black silence of her powerless home, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's influence stretched deeper than mere words. Was this blackout an accident, or something darker? Emma grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The cul-de-sac was quiet, but the streetlights were still glowing faintly, except near her own house. There, the single street lamp flickered and died. Neighbors' windows revealed. Little signs of normal life, faint glimmers of light, the low murmur of televisions. But her house sat isolated, dark and silent. Her gaze drifted to Karen's house. Through the bay window, the living room was illuminated, almost unnaturally bright for this late hour. The chandelier sparkled, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Emma swallowed hard. Karen's home was the only one fully lit. She walked to her. Front electric meter, her flashlight beam catching a strange scratch mark near the lockbox. Someone had tampered with it. Emma's pulse quickened. Her mind raced back to the HOA meeting's final warning. Karen's smile had been a razor, thin and cold. "She's trying to scare me," Emma whispered to herself. The feeling of being watched crept over her as a shadow moved at the edge of her yard. Emma spun around, heart hammering, but saw only the empty street. Had Karen sent someone? Or was Karen herself lurking in the dark? She pulled her jacket tighter, but the chill wasn't from the spring breeze. It was the growing realization. This wasn't just a fight over neighborhood rules. This was personal. Emma's phone buzzed. In her pocket, a text from an unknown number. "Fix it or face the consequences." The message sent a shiver down her spine. She glanced back at Karen's brightly lit house. The power that kept Karen's home glowing in the dead of night felt like a warning or a challenge. Emma knew one thing for certain. The quiet cul-de-sac she once loved was no longer safe. And Karen was at the center of the storm. As Emma retreated into the shadows of her powerless home, she vowed silently she would uncover the truth, no matter what it took. The next morning, Emma sat on hold with the utility company, staring at her dead coffee maker. She hadn't slept. Every sound outside during the night felt like an intruder, a footstep in gravel, a whisper on the breeze. Now, bleary-eyed and shivering, she was determined to find out who had pulled the plug on her life. A chipper voice finally answered the call. "Yes, ma'am. Your account was flagged for immediate disconnection. It was authorized through a neighborhood. Code violation report. Do you live at 1426 Briar Glen?" Emma's stomach sank. "Yes. According to our records, someone from your HOA submitted a formal complaint claiming your setup was dangerously non-compliant. We had no choice." Emma's voice turned cold. "Who reported me?" "I'm sorry. That information is confidential." She hung up and stood motionless in her silent kitchen. The microwave clock, blank, her fridge, humming no longer. She could still see Karen's glowing living room from last night. Her pristine world had remained untouched. Of course it had. Emma pulled up the HOA's online complaint portal. She knew Karen was obsessed with protocol. Any action taken would have left a paper trail, or a digital one. Nothing. No logged complaint. No official report. It was like the whole thing had been done off the record. Suddenly, a knock shattered the silence. Emma opened the door to find a clipboard. Not a pursoon. It was propped up with a sticky note. You were warned. Next time, it won't just be the lights. Neighborhood Compliance Committee. Emma's heart skipped. She looked up and down the street. No one. But across the road, Karen's blinds shifted. Someone watching. The phrase Neighborhood Compliance Committee wasn't real. It didn't exist. Emma had read the bylaws when she moved in. This was fabricated, a scare tactic. Karen was playing puppet master. Later that afternoon, Emma sat through the HOA's emergency community standards briefing, a dull but mandatory Zoom session. Karen chaired the call with a smug smile, her voice syrupy and false. We simply must be vigilant. Some residents don't seem to understand the danger of non-code wiring, she said with an exaggerated pout. It would be a tragedy if someone's home caught fire due to ignorance. Emma muted her mic before whispering, You mean sabotage? Karen's eyes flicked toward her webcam as if she'd heard. Emma typed a quick message to another neighbor on the Zoom chat, Mrs. Calderon, a quiet woman who'd once confided she feared Karen's overreach. Ever had your power cut? Get any weird notes? The reply was instant. Yes, last summer. Lights out for 2 days. She claimed it was for my safety. Another message popped up from someone else. Happened to us, too. No warning. She called it preventive discipline. Emma's hands trembled. This wasn't an isolated attack. Karen had a pattern, silencing people through fear and plausible deniability. The HOA wasn't a community council. It was a web of quiet intimidation. And Karen sat at the center, pulling strings like a queen spider. Emma logged off the meeting early, her pulse thudding in her ears. She looked at her dark house, her useless appliances, her empty fridge. Karen had tried to take her power away, literally and figuratively. But in that moment, Emma made a silent vow she would shine a light on the truth, even if she had to burn Karen's lies to the ground to do it. The nights had grown quieter since the blackout, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that pressed against Emma's ears, tense and listening. She kept her blinds drawn now. Her flashlight stayed beside her bed. Her phone never left her pocket. She wasn't paranoid. She was being watched. On the third night after the power cut, Emma spotted something strange, bare footprints in the morning dew leading from her side gate to the electrical meter. They weren't hers. She hadn't even gone outside. Someone had crept onto her property again. She snapped photos, her breath forming a pale mist in the cool morning air. The tracks ended where the concrete met grass, vanishing toward the side alley between her house and Karen's. It wasn't proof, but it was something. Later that afternoon, she noticed someone watching from behind their front window. Not Karen. This time it was Mr. Avery from 2 doors down. An older man, quiet, rarely seen at HOA meetings. On a hunch, Emma walked over. He answered before she knocked. I saw you looking, he said, eyes tired but alert. Emma hesitated. Did you see someone on my property last night? A long pause. Yes. She stepped closer. Who? Mr. Avery sighed, opening the door wider. Inside, he led her to a dusty armchair near a window that perfectly overlooked Emma's house. He gestured toward the small ring camera mounted discreetly inside the curtain rod. I've been documenting what she does, he muttered. Figured I'd eventually need proof. Emma's heart leapt. You have footage? Avery nodded. Last night, a man in dark clothes, thin build, checked your electric meter, then used something. Looked like a tool belt. I've seen him around before, usually walking Karen's little rat dog in the evenings. Emma's mouth went dry. Karen's handyman? Unofficial, sure. She calls him her maintenance partner. The guy's always fixing things, on her property, and sometimes not. Emma watched the video Avery played back. The man moved like a shadow, methodical and quick. He reached into a pouch, attached something to the meter, then disappeared into the alley. The timestamp matched her blackout. Why haven't you shown this to the HOA? She asked. He gave her a sharp look. The board's full of her friends. I've seen them ignore worse. But you're not scared of her. I'm getting there, Emma admitted. She likes obedience, Avery said. You've got a spark she doesn't like. As Emma left, Avery slipped her a thumb drive. Just in case I'm accidentally electrocuted in my sleep. That night, Emma parked 2 blocks away and returned home on foot, slipping into her own backyard under cover of darkness. She hid behind her garden shed, camera in hand, and waited. At 12:14 a.m., she caught movement. Someone sneaking down the side of her house. The same man. He paused at the meter again. Emma raised her phone, hands steady, filming every second. But then he turned his head. They locked eyes. He bolted. Emma burst from her hiding spot, yelling, "Hey!" But he was already sprinting toward Karen's yard, vanishing through the shadows. A side door to her garage clicked shut a moment later. Emma's breathing was ragged, but her footage was clear. Now she had something Karen couldn't explain away. She whispered to herself, "Let's see what the queen spider does when someone..." Tears down her web. The first surge hit at 3:17 a.m. Emma shot upright in bed, jolted awake by the sound of something buzzing, low, metallic, unnatural. Her room pulsed with a faint strobing light. The overhead fan spun wildly, faster than it should, its motor whining with a shrill rising pitch. A faint burning smell drifted from the hallway. She jumped up, yanked the plug on the fan, and bolted for the circuit breaker. The panel was humming. Not normal humming, angry, crackling, like it was alive. With shaking hands, she shut the entire system down. And just like that, silence returned. By morning, her fridge was fried. Her phone charger scorched. A hairline crack had split the microwave screen. Something wasn't just wrong with her power, it was turning dangerous. Emma pulled out the thumb drive Mr. Avery had given her. She'd already made copies and emailed. Them to herself, her sister, even her old tech friend in Dallas. She wouldn't be erased quietly. By 9 a.m., she stood in front of the HOA office, one of those prefab community buildings decorated with fake flowers and optimism. She pushed the door open to find Karen already waiting behind the front desk, lips curled into a smug crescent. "Emma," she said sweetly. "Here to report a flowerbed violation." Emma set the thumb drive on the desk. "I know you sent someone to sabotage my meter. I have video proof." Karen didn't even blink. "You really should consider medication for your paranoia." Emma leaned in. "If this thumb drive hits the internet, everyone will know what you're doing. Everyone." Karen's smile held, but her eyes sharpened. "Let me make something clear," Karen said, voice now colder than steel. "This neighborhood thrives because people like me keep it clean. We protect it from chaos, from people who don't follow rules. If you're implying I'd risk legal liability to correct a minor electrical issue, I suggest you think very carefully." Emma's breath caught. It wasn't a denial, it was a warning. She turned to leave. But Karen wasn't done. "Oh, and Emma, you might want to check on Mr. Avery. I saw an ambulance at his place early this morning. Tragic, really." Emma stopped cold. No. She ran. 2 doors down, a white van was parked in front of Avery's house. The front door was ajar. EMTs were wheeling out a stretcher. Avery lay still, an oxygen mask strapped to his face, his eyes half-lidded but open. Emma caught one medic by the arm. "What happened?" "Heart arrhythmia," the woman replied. "Could be stress-induced. He's stable, but we're taking him in for observation." Emma watched, jaw clenched, as they drove off. Coincidence? Or just perfectly timed intimidation? That night. Emma's lights flickered again. Once, then twice. The house groaned. Somewhere behind the walls, she heard something skitter, wires humming like nerves. But Karen's house shone like a palace, every window aglow, porch, lights blazing like floodlights. It was too bright. Wrongly bright. Her entire living room was practically pulsating with golden light. Emma stared at it through binoculars, chills crawling down her spine. The light shimmered unnaturally. Too hot, too intense. It felt angry. Something was building. And whatever it was, Karen had no idea the storm she had invited. Emma whispered into the dark, her voice trembling but fierce. "You started this war, Karen, but something bigger's coming, and this time, karma's got the fuse." Emma barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every electrical hum felt amplified, as if her house was listening. By sunrise, she was outside, coffee in hand, staring across the street at Karen's blindingly lit home. It was too bright. For 6 a.m., not warm and cozy, blazing and unnatural. The curtains glowed as if they were close to catching fire. Emma didn't believe in signs. But this felt like the universe preparing something surgical. Her thoughts were interrupted by the whirring of wheels. A mail cart approached, driven by Marcus, the neighborhood mailman and Karen's least favorite person. Emma waved him down. "You hear about Avery?" she asked. He nodded grimly. "They say it was his heart, but man looked fine yesterday. You ask me, this whole place is cursed." "Karen still got full power," Emma said. "My house nearly exploded last night," Marcus smirked. "Funny you say that. There's been a weird number of transformer complaints. All on your side of the street. Want to guess which house isn't connected to the neighborhood grid?" Emma blinked. "What?" "Yeah. Karen had a private line installed 3 years ago. Said she didn't trust shared infrastructure. Got a guy to route her directly through a subgrid bypass. Totally off book. A private line? That explained why Karen's house never lost power, why she could overuse it, abuse it, and never get throttled like the rest. Emma's anger was boiling over. "Is that even legal?" Marcus shrugged. "Let's just say it's a code gray area, like most of what she does." That night, Emma walked the neighborhood with a clipboard and a flashlight, pretending to do a property survey. Neighbors welcomed her, some even eager to talk. They shared whispers, flickering outlets, unexplained surges, lights behaving erratically. It wasn't just her anymore, and it all started near Karen's grid line. Emma took notes, made a diagram. The pattern was undeniable. The closer the home to Karen's subgrid, the worse the instability. And Karen, it seemed, had supercharged her home with smart bulbs, security cameras, and enough decorative lighting to cook a turkey. Emma returned home and pulled out her breaker box. She flipped each switch slowly, carefully, and something buzzed inside the wall. A high-pitched whine, like static behind plaster. Suddenly, every bulb in her house pulsed. Once, then blew out in a chain reaction of popping glass. She dove to the floor, heart hammering, as sparks danced across her ceiling fan like fireflies. Smoke curled from a wall socket. Her living room was filled with the smell of melting plastic. Then silence. Her phone buzzed. A single notification. Grid feedback detected. Fault loop returning to source. Emma didn't understand all the tech talk, but one word stuck with her returning. She crawled to the window and peeked out at Karen's house. The light had changed. It wasn't warm gold anymore. It was white-hot, flickering erratically, every bulb straining. Her electric Christmas reindeer out front began to twitch, one lifting a hoof unnaturally. The porch lamp blinked in a fast, strobe-like pattern, and inside her living room, Karen stood in a bathrobe, staring up at her flickering chandelier with a confused, annoyed scowl. Emma stared, breath caught. The surge wasn't done. It was circling back. Emma stood frozen at her window, watching Karen's house pulse like a dying star. The lights didn't flicker. They twitched, erratic and rapid, like something inside was trying to escape the wiring. Each time they blinked out, a strange blue glow lingered in the air, crawling across her walls like static-infused smoke. Suddenly, snap! A bright flash exploded from Karen's upstairs window. Emma ducked instinctively, heart pounding. When she looked, again the second-story curtains were burning, not fully but smoldering at the edges. Karen's silhouette flailed inside the glass, yelling at someone or something that wasn't visible. Then all her lights went out at once. Pitch black. Silence. The entire street went dark, including Emma's house. This time it wasn't a blackout. It felt drained, like something had sucked the current out of the air itself. Emma grabbed her phone and tried calling 911, but her screen refused to turn on. Just a dull flicker of pixels. Useless. She stepped out onto her porch as a cold wind swept down Briar Glen Lane. One by one, other neighbors came outside, murmuring nervously. Flashlights clicked on. A dog barked somewhere. People whispered Karen's name. Then the front door of Karen's home creaked open. No one stood in the frame, but a buzzing, like a swarm of bees over a speaker, filled the air. Emma's porch light sparked to life on its own. A single bulb burned orange, then blue, then went out again. From across the street, Karen finally stumbled out. Her face was pale, her robe blackened at the sleeve, hair half standing from static. Her eyes were wild, hollow. "Is anyone else seeing this?" she muttered, staggering toward the center of the street. "There's something inside the wires, it's moving." Emma stepped forward. "Karen, what happened?" Karen turned sharply to her, like she didn't recognize her at all. "It talked," she whispered. "I saw it crawl through my surge protector. It wasn't human. It said it was correcting an imbalance." Emma felt her skin crawl. "An imbalance?" it said. "Energy must flow equally. Stealing has a cost." Karen clutched her temples. "I didn't steal. I rerouted. It's not the same thing." A quiet pop echoed from her house, then another, like fingers snapping, in the dark. One by one, her Christmas decorations burst into flame. The electric reindeer's eyes glowed red before they melted into the grass. Karen screamed and backed away. "No! No! I fixed the grid! I optimized it!" Neighbors stood still, horrified, and then the final blow. A column of light burst through her chimney, straight up into the sky. Not fire, not electricity. Something in between, writhing and alive. It shimmered like liquid plasma, reaching toward the clouds like it was delivering judgment. Karen collapsed on the pavement, mumbling, "It found me." Emma stared in disbelief. Every bulb in her house was shattered, every line burned, but her breakers were untouched. Whatever was doing this, it was precise. Marcus, the mailman, whispered from behind her, "I think the grid woke up." Emma swallowed hard. "No, I think the neighborhood did." Karen began to weep in the middle of the street, rocking back and forth, begging the invisible current to leave her alone. But it wasn't done, and Emma knew now. This was no longer just about rules, wires, or HOA control. Something ancient had been awakened. And karma had a circuit of its own. Karen was taken away at dawn. 2 squad cars arrived, then an unmarked black SUV. No ambulance, no fire crew. Just two men in crisp gray suits who spoke quietly into earpieces and wore no badges. They didn't cuff her, but she didn't resist, either. She shuffled into the back seat, blank-eyed, still muttering the same phrase. It crawled through the wires. It crawled through the wires. Emma watched from her porch with a mug of untouched tea. The neighborhood was unusually silent. No barking dogs, no sprinklers clicking on. Power was still out, but the air felt charged, heavy, waiting. She hadn't told anyone about the blue glow she saw dancing inside her circuit box the night before. It had moved like a creature, fluid, serpentine, almost curious. Not aggressive, just aware. That morning she visited Mr. Avery in the hospital. He was pale but smiling faintly. "I heard they took the Queen Bee." Emma nodded. She cracked. Hard. Avery's eyes narrowed. "Did the lights speak to you?" Emma hesitated. "You heard them too?" He nodded slowly. Not with words, but something electric, old. It's not just wires and currents. It's memory. Every surge, every spark, it remembers. Emma leaned in. "What is it?" Avery sighed. "An echo, maybe, of the thousands of small injustices buried under modern tech. Power rerouted, energy stolen, safety ignored. You can't cheat the grid forever. Eventually it balances itself." Emma left his room uneasy. This wasn't just tech karma. It was natural law, ancient, digital, and now awake. She returned home and opened her breaker panel again. No sparks, just silence. And then, as her fingers hovered near the main switch, a faint hum pulsed through her hand, like a heartbeat. Not painful, not dangerous, just recognition. Suddenly the panel flickered. A single word appeared on the built-in display, blinking in glowing white text. "Cleared." Emma stepped back, heart racing. That message had never been programmed. That night, power returned to her house, softly. Lights warmed back to life. No pops, no surges. Appliances reset. The house felt normal again, but cleaner, lighter, as if something toxic had been drained out. Across the street, Karen's home remained dark. Every window black. Police tape. Stretched across her gate, fluttering in the wind, and then came the letter. No postmark, just a plain envelope slid under her door. Inside was a folded sheet of paper with 3 lines typed in courier font. "The grid accepts your balance. Let others know. No one owns the current." The next theft will not end in shadow. No signature. No sender. Emma stared at the letter for a long time, her skin crawling. Later, as she took out her trash, she noticed something strange. Her smart bulbs, once glitchy and unpredictable, now dimmed in perfect harmony with her steps, like they responded to her. The porch camera made no sound when she passed. It simply pivoted to follow her gently, like a dog resting its head. The grid had changed, or maybe chosen, and Emma understood. She hadn't been spared. She'd been witnessed and found in balance, but not everyone would be so lucky, especially not in a neighborhood full of rule benders, code violators, and self-serving tyrants. The current was awake now, and karma ran on high voltage. 3 weeks passed. Karen's house remained dark. No visitors, no mail. No one ever saw her return. Rumors swirled. Some claimed she'd been committed. Others said she'd moved to a facility owned by the same shadowy energy corporation that quietly replaced the old neighborhood transformer days after the incident. Emma didn't care. Karen was gone, and something else had changed. The neighborhood began to soften. People waved more, spoke less about lawn heights and more about weather, kids, life. The usual HOA tension seemed to lift, like someone had cut a wire that had been humming under everyone's skin for years. Still, Emma remained cautious. The note stayed locked in her desk drawer. Her lights stayed modest, and every so often she placed her hand gently on the circuit breaker box, feeling for the pulse. It never left. One night, she was walking home from Avery's house. They'd started having weekly dinners, unofficial peace talks, he called them, when she saw lights on in Karen's home. Not normal lights, wrong lights. They weren't steady. They blinked, rotated, changed color with unnatural rhythm. The porch bulb was spiraling slowly through the color spectrum, like a digital eye scanning the world. Emma's chest tightened. She crossed the street cautiously, stepping through the yellowed grass. The porch was dusty, the door still sealed with police tape, but the front door was ajar. She pushed it open slowly. The air inside was stale, but warm. Warmer than it should have been. The walls were covered in fine, blackened scorch marks, like veins burned into drywall. The living room, once the crown jewel of Karen's ego, was empty except for the chandelier, which hung like a lifeless spider. And then it flickered. Emma turned toward the hallway. The television, long thought destroyed, turned on by itself. But there was no cable. No streaming, just live footage. Of the entire neighborhood. Every home. Every yard. Every person. Emma gasped as she saw herself standing in the doorway, caught in the act. She stepped back. The chandelier buzzed to life. A voice filled the air. Not Karen's. Not human. Modulated. Deep. New administrator detected. Balance protocol active. Host. Emma Wells. No, she whispered. No, I didn't agree to this. The breaker box on the wall lit up like a server rack, displaying scrolling lines of code. Energy usage data, power draw ratios, even flagged violations. But they weren't just Karen's. They were everyone's. Avery, the Marstons, the Taylors, even Marcus the mailman, all color-coded in green, yellow, red, balanced, borderline. Abusers. Emma stumbled backward toward the door, but it slammed shut behind her. Lights dimmed, then flared. The voice returned. Neighborhood under review. Would you like to enforce compliance? Yes. No. Emma looked at the screen. 2 options. One blinking. Yes. She reached toward no. The lights blinked twice. She hesitated, and in that second, a spark shot through her fingers. Not painful, but undeniable. A warning, a choice. She closed her eyes, took a breath, then walked out. The door clicked behind her, locked itself. She never told anyone what happened, but from that day on, whenever someone tried to push a rule too far or tried to skirt a boundary, things happened. Lights flickered. Doorbells rang at 3 a.m. Security cameras turned and stared. The HOA changed too. Suddenly, inspections became precise, balanced, but fair. No more absurd citations, just quietly enforced equity. And Emma? She never touched the breaker again. But some nights, when the wind was low and the power lines hummed just right, she could hear it whispering through the grid. Compliance ensures peace. Balance prevents burnout. Karma never shorts. And somewhere deep inside Karen's old house, a faint blue light still glows, waiting.